We do quite a lot of work on CVs because students apply for various jobs, graduate schemes, etc., etc. So there's a lot of information about CVs. And in addition to that, we tend to link in very much with employers to find out what their latest take in and what their latest information is about CVs and what their latest either advice or niggles or whatever it is that's bothering them about CVs that are coming through to them. And we tend to then feed back to the students and make sure that everybody's au fait. So, fine, so we'll get started. Good start. Okay, so we're looking at top tips as the heading for the CVs was. And the first thing that I'd like you to do is to try and put yourself, before you do anything else, into the employer's shoes. Okay? Try and think like an employer before you even start compiling your CV. Now, I've recently been involved in a campaign here at Brunel doing some shortlisting for an internal vacancy. And I've been staggered. This vacancy was for an experienced hire. And I've been staggered to the extent that the CVs that we've received sometimes bore no resemblance to the job description. And so this is something that you really need to think about when you are writing a CV. And nowadays, you have to write a CV for every job that you're applying for. Write, tweak, amend a CV. You cannot just have one size fits all. It just doesn't work anymore. Okay? So I'd like you, when that happens, when you're starting to write, to think about what is it that this employer is going to be thinking about when he looks at my CV, but more importantly, what do they require? And how can I demonstrate this match? How can I demonstrate that I fit the job? Because, and I particularly, specifically put up this chap here who's in the corner looking harassed and tired, because that's how I was feeling the other day when I had a huge pile of CVs to look through. It was the end of the day. I'd had a really busy day, a bit like today, lots of sessions. And I had to go through a pile of CVs. And what was happening? I was scanning through. I wasn't reading everything. I was looking at the big main bits. And when it wasn't immediately obvious to me as to why this particular CV had come in for this particular job, I was just giving up and not even bothering. So the crucial thing when you start writing a CV is to think, what is the job description? What are they asking for? What is the spec about? What particular skills are they looking for? What experience are they looking for? How can I match? How can I demonstrate that I've got them? How can I perhaps reflect some of their terminology in what I'm writing about on the CV? Okay, that is your first crucial point, fitting the job. If you don't fit the job, if you think you can write a CV and say, this is me, take me, here I am, it's not going to happen. That fit has to be demonstrated. And so few times people look at the actual job description and underline the key points and actually try to match them on their CVs. And it's about being flexible as well when you use your information. So it's the one advantage that CVs have in the UK is that there's no fixed format about how a CV should look. That's an advantage, and perhaps also a disadvantage in some ways, because, for example, in Germany, there's a very strict format about what you need to put on the CV in the particular order. In the UK, it's a lot more flexible, but it means that you have to choose what is relevant for the job, and you have to choose your layout to make it relevant for the job. And remember, this tired person looking at these CVs, whatever you write has to be accessible and easy to read. Really, really important. Okay, apologies for all the bubbles coming up on screen, but means I'm not tapping. So have a quick look at this CV. Remember that anybody looking at CVs is going to scan them, so they're going to quickly go through. Now, you can see that there's very good headings, nicely in bold, the information about their qualifications in bold, information about work and their job title. So if I'm scanning through, I can see business and management, marketing assistant, marketing intern. Right, I'm looking for someone with marketing background. Immediately I can see that they've got something that's relevant. Okay? Easy to read, clear cut. Okay? So, this is a question I often get asked, both by students and have comments from employers. Profile or not to profile? Okay? So, who has a profile that reads, keen, motivated, enthusiastic, graduate, keen to find a job in whatever? Whose profile reads like that at the moment? Okay. So the top bit of feedback that I get from employers is they're fed up with reading that. Because what it means is that you've cut and pasted all these keywords off other people's CVs or other websites and stuck them in. Okay? And what does it actually relate to? What evidence do I have that you're keen and motivated? You've just stuck those words in, those adjectives. So this is when I say to profile or not to profile. What should go in that profile? Should there be a profile? Some employers say they don't even read the profiles, couldn't be bothered. Okay? Especially when they are coming up with all these words that don't really mean anything. So I've given you some examples here of the kind of profiles that might work. So this is the one we talked about, ambitious, motivated, knows what he wants and how to get it. Okay? Currently seeking work experience. Very general, a little bit cheesy. Okay? Not going to impress many employers. Okay, here's another one, an objective. And this is a very quick summary to try and bring to the employer's attention who they are, what they're looking for, and why they want to do it. Okay, so this is something that could possibly help. If you're in a situation, you're telling the employer very quickly, that tired man who's in a hurry to go through your CVs, what it is you've got, your key stuff, what experience you're looking for, and why you want to do it. So that could be a possibility. It's quite focused. It's setting the scene. Now, this is a key skills list. And quite a lot of technical CVs tend to have this sort of list. And again, this could be useful for technical jobs because, particularly in the computing IT side, if a particular applicant doesn't have a specific set of IT skills, they would definitely not be suitable for the job. So by listing all the IT skills right at the top, again, it helps the employer to work out whether they can carry on looking at this candidate. So this is another type of initial profile that you might decide to choose, particularly if you're applying for technical jobs. And I've got Mark here from SAS who might be able to tell us what you think of profiles, because I've just been saying how employers talk about profiles and what they think of them.
Happy to share. Hi, my name is Mark Stoddart. I look after talent acquisition at SAS. I'm just going to contribute a little bit to this session whenever I can. So from our point of view, in summary on profiles, what we're looking to try and do is learn a little bit more about who you are. And also your motivators. What is it that interests you? What do you want to do, as opposed to what have you studied? So just on your profile, try and get across to us something that is unique to you, and around a motivation or an interest that is ultimately driving your interest in our business. Is that okay?
Yep, it's fine, thank you. So it depends on the employer, and it depends on your particular role that you'll be applying for as to what type of profile you have. Now, here's another example. This is a summary. It's a general summary of everything that they have that might be relevant for the job. Now, this summary could work if everything that they mentioned was appropriate. But quite often you get summaries where there's a lot of stuff on there that doesn't really either make you stand out or fit with the job. So remember the first time, job fit, really important. Okay, so there's another one. And here is a new style of summary profile that seems to be creeping in. We see that coming in through a lot on CVs. And this is a summary of where the person is and additional experience that they might have or any other skills that might be relevant to the job. This one is a little bit general, but it can be made more specific. And again, employers are saying to us they like the idea of this personal summary because they can see at a quick snapshot how many years of customer-facing experience this individual has had without going through their whole list of jobs. Perhaps if they're particularly looking at social media, what they've done on social media. So it's giving them a very quick snapshot and summary at the top of the CV, and then it might invite them to read on. So you've got an example of different types of profiles. So these are basically, as we said, your career highlights, but matching the job. And you can think about it as a quick 30-second commercial. This is kind of selling you so that the employer will read on. Okay, so now a little bit about the detail. What goes on further on in the CV. So a little bit about what is not required. We'll start with what's not required. Pictures. I don't know if you like pictures on your CVs. No. Very much accepted in places like Germany. There's a big industry. In fact, you'd have a good job there because they have these specially posed pictures for CVs. I think that it's going to start happening here in the UK as well, because with LinkedIn and various other social media platforms where there is a picture, I think people will start having more posed pictures and more professional looking pictures. So again, another lesson is watch the space, watch what's happening, keep in touch. Every year things change when it comes to CVs and the whole platform. Adjust, adapt, be flexible. Because if you apply with an old-fashioned CV, they'll think that you're out of touch and you're not part of what's happening, not keeping up with trends. So, no date of birth, age, no marital status, not how many children you have, none of that is relevant. In the UK, there's no discrimination on the basis of age and all the other factors, so we don't need to mention them on the CV. Okay, what is recommended? What's good? Bullet points. Continuous prose is lovely, but if you have a whole big paragraph of continuous prose and that tight executive is trying to read it, it's going to be very difficult. Okay. So very well written bullet points that aren't just 3 words make it much easier for people to read. Plain language. You don't have to use long, techie words. It's not necessary. You don't have to open a dictionary and find more difficult words for what is simply said. Okay. Chronology. Always start with today and work backwards. Always. And keep it consistent. Sorry, I knew this would happen. But I can use this to illustrate, while we're here, another point about the not dones. No curriculum vitae anymore. Again, this is fashion. Okay? Normally people will put their name in bold at the top of the CV. It's not fashionable to put curriculum vitae or resume or whatever. Address, nationality, if you feel you're likely to be asked questions about your right to work, because you might have a name that makes it sound like my name is Kalia Miras. I tend to put my nationality down because it kind of then puts people at rest in terms of asking me about my right to work in the UK. But it's up to you. And the date of birth, not required. Okay? Now, what do you think about that email? How professional is that email? Okay, I had one hot lips at Hotmail. Okay? Think about it. It's great when you're at university having fun with your friends, but if you're trying to show a professional image, no. Okay? So these little details are what make the difference. Okay. Length. There are some companies that will only take one-page CVs. In fact, I read something recently where they said that it should be 1 page for every 10 years of your career. Okay? I don't quite ascribe to that, but Investment banks, for example, at graduate level only require a page. It's about being able to present the information that's important consistently and concisely. Okay? And that's what they're looking for. As a management trainee, that is one of your skills that you need to demonstrate, your ability to zero in on what's important and to present it in a way that's accessible. So this is an exercise in writing for purpose as well. This is what employers will be checking on. Okay. So, and then consistent design. I come across CVs where they've got tons of fonts and different bits and pieces going on all over the place. Again, think about the fact that if you do that, it makes it very difficult to read. What you want is something accessible and quick, okay? So keep your fonts consistent. Keep them at a size that's legible, not too small, not too big. Normally about 11 is the font that's recommended. Okay. So what you're trying to avoid, obviously, is landing in that bin, because it obviously happens.
The common ones that we see are generally they're just far too much information. And unfortunately, people in my job, qualifying a CV, we have very little time in real terms to do this. So you do tend to get a bit punch drunk after a while. So the easier it is you make it for us to understand clearly who you are, what you do, what you're looking for, you're much more likely to engage us. So I'd say the biggest reason is just too much information.
And spelling and grammar.
Spelling and grammar is the second probably major one.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you expect a resume, of course, is going to look different from a graduate student to an experienced hire?
Yeah.
Do you expect experienced hire to put in too much information or just highlights? And then
Again, highlights, but it's not necessarily what they've done, but it's where do you make a difference.
okay.
That's the key. That's the other key.
Yeah, I'm going to go through
You'll
that.
come to
Yeah.
that, sorry.
Yeah. And also how it fits to the job, really, yeah. Okay. Right, so little basic stuff about typos. If you're applying for a job where you're required to be an editor or a publisher or whatever, and or a job that requires attention to detail, and you can't even show attention to detail on your CV, you've already demonstrated an attribute that you don't want them to pick up. So, too many pages, gaps. If you're not accounting for your gaps and people can see that there are years missing where there's no explanation, then they're going to start to kind of worry about things like that. And any negative comments. On a CV, you don't say why you left a job. I left because my boss was bullying me or whatever. None of that. On the CV, none of that information comes through. Okay? Everything should be positive. And then why they will be selected is about smart presentation, easy, logical flow, relevance and evidence of skills. Okay. I was supposed to have a clicker, but I don't think. I'm just checking the time. Okay, so this is what we talked about, about showing your achievements and the fact that we're trying to demonstrate that you shine and what you've accomplished. So when you're describing your work experience, it could be work experience, employment, voluntary work, it all counts. It's about showing what you've achieved as well as describing what you've done. Okay, so it's really important. What have you contributed? And I've given some examples about the kind of things you could be talking about. Profits, decreased costs, streamlining processes, targets, demonstrating leadership. It's about quantifying stuff as well. If you're working to targets, we have an organization that employs students over the summer and they have to sell subscriptions to charities, and they go, doorstepping basically. But they have targets, and it's a really good experience in negotiating, in getting people to actually contribute who'd never thought of contributing to a particular charity. So it shows good skills, and it shows the fact that they can work to targets. Tell them about what particular targets you were set and how you exceeded them. Give them more information. This is the stuff that's going to make you stand out, is what you've achieved, what you've done over and above what was expected of you. Okay. Oh. Right, so in terms of when you write stuff on the CV about what you've done, so often we have this repetition, duties included, responsible for, over and over again. What does that make me feel? I'm tired and I'm bored. I really don't want to read the same thing over and over again. Okay? So, how do you make it more upbeat? How do you energize what you write about? I've got here a list of action words. So when you are describing using bullet points, you start off with the action word because that gives two benefits. The one is it actually sounds more positive, and it gets quickly to the point of what the skill was. So if you start the bullet point with negotiated a new contract, then you know you have negotiation skills. It's right there next to the bullet point. Okay? So immediately I've picked it up. I'm glancing through your CV and I've got all your skills because I've got all these action words. I can go into them if you can't see them. So just to give you an idea of the kind of bullet points that you could be using. And you'll find these lists of action words all over the web. And it just gives you some inspiration as to what it is you need to use to describe stuff that you've done. Because another mistake that people make is that they just take their job description and go cut and paste and put it on their CV. Okay? What does that tell me? Nothing. That's what you were meant to do. Don't know if you did it. Don't even know if you achieved beyond what you were meant to do or even part of what you were meant to do. And we all know that jobs change. You're given a job description and what you actually do is something totally different. So we don't want job descriptions. We want what you actually did and how you made a difference. Okay? That's what needs to appear. And the skills that you developed. Okay? Right. I often get asked, oh, but I don't really have any interest. Why do I have to have this section on my CV? Is that what you say? Okay. And, you know, don't underestimate how important it is to illustrate this area on your CV. It gives an employer a lot of clues. Nowadays, everybody is a graduate. Everybody goes to university, they get a degree, and off they go. Okay, so there they go. They got their degree. But those that will stand out will be the ones that have done other things while they've been studying. They've had other work. They've, you know, gone off and joined the skateboarding society or become chair of the skateboarding society. You know, that is what's going to make you stand out and be different. And so interests are important for that reason, but they're also important because they illustrate to an employer that you have other things that you do in your spare time to kind of relax and get rid of all the stress that might be involved in your work. But also, it gives an employer a clue about the kind of person you are. And the employer might be thinking, well, I do skateboarding. Oh, I fancy having a chat to this guy or girl. You know, we might have something in common. Or I know so-and-so in the team also does skateboarding. Yeah, you know, they could get together. I'm sure the two of them would work well together. It's about having more than just work that will link you in with the rest of the team.
Agreed. Thank you, Kelly. That's really important. We always look at interests and what you're telling us you're doing outside your course study. We always look. Really important point.
Okay. So what I've done is I've given you a few little samples of the kind of interests that people write about. So that's one way. Okay, and again, it's bullet point, but quite long bullet points. So here I've got Homebrew Society. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is quite interesting and different. Student rep, Student Industrial Society, fundraise for children in need, enjoy dancing. So it's quite a rounded person. Really interesting. Hip hop. Wow. Okay.
Should you also include qualifications? Because, for example, when you do sailing, should you say, I did like the whatever license to say that, to prove that you've done it, you know?
Not particularly. I'm not sure that that's totally relevant. It's more about talking about what you've done and where the interest has taken you, and more about the skills that you might have developed while doing it. I'm not sure the level that you've unless you've done sailing at national level and you've, done it for your country or for your county or whatever. I'm not sure the certificate's of particular interest.
Yeah, probably the standard, as you say. If you got to a decent standard in something, it shows real commitment. So that could be helpful.
Okay, so there's one. There's another one. Memberships. And give it headings that will help me to read. Having just a whole bunch of interests in a paragraph means that I'm going to read the first line and the last line. I'm going to miss the rest. Whereas here I've got membership, creative. Hey, I'm looking for a marketing person, and they say they're creative. Let's have a look. Okay, so here they say they're up to grade 8. Well, okay, it shows that they've gone to a high level. Right? Another one. Again, coached a number of youth football teams. Okay, coaching shows that they've got teaching skills, training, ability to work with teams. Okay, organised and took part in a sports competition in another country. Again, it's given me a lot of additional knowledge that I'm not getting from your standard job. And then just another one to complete it, and one more. Interest in organic food. Okay. It could be anything, but it just shows the roundedness of the person and additional skills coming through. Right. Now, the other bit that I wanted to talk about is, again, we spoke about a little bit in the beginning about how CVs evolve and change all the time. And hands up those of you who are on LinkedIn. Okay, so most of you. Okay, there was a quote a while ago where they said, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're out, or something.
So you're not serious about the job?
Oh, no, not serious about the job, but it's become the platform for networking and for promotion, and also a lot of the companies are actually, recruitment companies, are actively looking for particular skills. And even companies themselves, not even recruitment companies, if they have a specific IT skill, they might be searching on the basis of that skill through LinkedIn. So it is a good area to be on. And who knows, maybe in the future it will supersede paper CVs or emailed CVs, and it might be where people will be looking for CVs. But at the moment, there are two platforms. There's LinkedIn and various other social media platforms, but LinkedIn obviously for the professional side. And there is your CV that you email. So it's really important that you have consistency in terms of the information that you present on LinkedIn and the information that you present on your CV. You might choose to highlight certain areas on your CV that are relevant for that particular job that you're applying for. But if the information is inconsistent, then you're going to have a problem. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, if an employer is serious about calling you in for an interview, what do you think the first thing they're going to do before they call you in? Personally, I would Google the person. Okay? First thing I'm going to do is Google them. And what's going to come up. Okay? And I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn. All right? So, information needs to be consistent. Because if I see something that's completely off the wall, I'm going to think, what's going on? Where are they lying? Are they online or to me? Okay? So, get some advice. And when we talked about profiles, this is where that sort of snapshot, that commercial, is really important in the top section of LinkedIn, because that's where people are going to find you and search in that top sort of introductory kind of bit on LinkedIn. Okay, and then looking at keywords. If you're putting yourself online, keywords are really important because people will be searching on keywords. So if there are particular areas that you want to be searched on, then make sure that those keywords appear on your CV or on your profile. Okay, so it's really, really important. And then just a final, who knows what the fold is? So literally, when an employer looks at your CV initially, online, that's what's going to appear on their screen, because they only see the top half to start with. Okay? All right?
Yes, often the case, yeah.
Okay? So, this is where you need to make a difference. This is where you need to grab them. This is where they need to see that it's clear, that it's, you know, promising in terms of what's available, for them to scroll down and read further. Okay? If they don't see anything, they'll just go on to the next CV. Okay? The equivalent of putting it in the trash can. Okay? So the fold. Okay. Right. I think I've basically gone through a quick summary of you know, what it is that's really key. I'm open to questions now, and I think Mark will be happy to answer some questions as well. Or if there's anything you wanted to add.
Thank you. Thank you for the content. It's fantastic because it makes our life so much easier. The only thing I would like to build on and just highlight what we are spending more time on now in conjunction with your CVs. The LinkedIn profile, as you said, is absolutely crucial. And without any doubt, we always go to LinkedIn. The second piece, the way you needed to start differentiating yourselves with your CVs, LinkedIn allows you to do things like embed video. And video is the norm for us now. And I know you guys are starting to use it, so focus in on video and things that you can do that will make you stand out. So let's say you said something in your CV that's caught my interest. And you may have put a URL link maybe back into your LinkedIn profile. If you caught my interest, I'm going to click that. So you still only got a 2-page CV, but now I'm going into a whole new world of content that you have created for me that I'm actually now going to have a look at. The things that will catch my eye, as you said, it needs to be very consistent with your CV, but it can also embed things like, let's say you got a 1-minute video clip of one of your lecturers talking about you as a reference. That would catch my interest. Let's say you did some work experience somewhere and you got a 1-minute video clip off your phone. The quality of this is fantastic now. And you got somebody saying, this person made a great difference with this type of project. So these are the smaller things that can really set you apart. And the social media is the growth. And I completely agree with you, Carrie. I think the sort of, certainly paper, electronic-based CV format is very limited now. And it always has been, if we're perfectly honest. But we've never come up with a better tool. Now there are many tools out there that you can use to yourself, and multimedia is a big, big part. And the last thing I would say, just caution you on Facebook. So over 50% of employers are now searching Facebook. SAS don't. I don't. I am not entirely comfortable with it yet because I see that still as a social tool where people are using it for social interaction as opposed to a work-based tool. LinkedIn we're very comfortable with. I think it's common. It's the professional platform. But Facebook is coming up on the rails very, very fast. And they are going after LinkedIn's market and they're developing recruitment functionality around the data that they capture that you provide. So please be careful with Facebook. There's no delete key. I know you know that, but there really isn't. And Google will throw up all sorts of things once we start searching. We use things like TweetSike. Have you come across TweetSike? So do you Twitter? Any of you on Twitter? Well, we can do a quick search on, as soon as we get your Twitter address, we can do a search and we can look at all of the tweets and keywords that you've been searching. It can help us because it tells us what your interests are, but it can also work against you if you're not careful. So I would just urge caution. Everything in the social media world is incredibly visible to everybody, and it might not always be the audience that you'd intended it for.
But there are a lot of settings that you can use on Facebook, for example, to make things private. But not everybody is aware, and I think they are kind of buried, and you really need to go in to be able to work out what the settings are. They make it intentionally complicated so people don't bother with it. But I've come across students of mine with some really, really, difficult stuff. And, I'm not going to say what, but... And even as they profile pictures. So be very, very careful, I agree. Sorry to... Yes?
You've got somebody's home address and phone number there. Now, on paper, I understand that. Are you suggesting that should go online as well?
Not necessarily, no. Unless an employer requests a CV to be emailed to them. But if you're uploading a CV online for a general purposes to a recruitment site, probably not a good idea to include your home address. But this would be a CV that is intended to go to a specific employer.
In regards to the CV itself, if you say your work experience, is it advisable to put in a bit of the company's description where you worked at?
Yes, I mean, if it's a company that's not well known, if it's a company that you worked at in another country, it's always useful to have a little bit of information. But
One sentence.
yeah, one sentence, but not go on for ages and use that as a promotion opportunity. It really needs to be very, very brief. Anything, yeah?
You mentioned, obviously, having everything work experience guys in chronological and explaining gaps. What if it happens that, there's almost too much to kind of keep yourself within the 2-page limit, so you select things that maybe aren't relevant to take out? How is it you go about then explaining any gaps or anything like that?
Well, if you've had a lot of work experience over 10 years, say, you'd obviously concentrate on the last 5 years or so. And if you want to mention the other 5 years, you'd have to just mention it in a line and not any more detail. I don't know, anything that you'd want to...
Good advice, but be as concise as you possibly can be. If you've got, as Kerry says, that 10 years maybe work experience, or certainly 5 years in different areas, that's really all we're interested in. It's only the last 2 or 3 years, particularly at your level of career when you're just starting. You will be limited as to your work experience to date, but make it punchy and direct.
Just to clarify a question.
Yeah.
So say, for instance, there was a job in the middle of the last 5 years that wasn't relevant to what you were applying for. Are you saying that you still need that for the chronological order, or do you get rid of it completely? So reduce it to one line? Or?
Yeah, reduce to one line. But what I would also do is perhaps use another heading called relevant experience or relevant employment, and then have other employment, still in chronological order, but underneath it. So you could pull out all the relevant jobs, put them in, and then have the non-relevant experience.
Fill in the gaps.
Yeah. But very, one-liners, basically.
So you still have to have it.
Yes,
to make sure you've got the dates
particularly if it's most recent.
And I want to ask about qualification. Do you have to add all your qualification or just a relevant qualification?
Well, normally at graduate level, we say you should be talking about your degree, your A-levels, and your GCSEs. But as you go further on, you can start to drop off some of the early qualifications. Yep. Anybody else? Yep.
Is it good to have a hyperlink which connects to your achievements, which talks about your relevant as a guest selection or something? Analytics.
Why would you have that as a hyperlink and not in your part of your CV? You mean if that wasn't relevant to the job?
Hyperlink in your CV.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, you could have a hyperlink to say LinkedIn at the top of your CV. If it's something that's particularly relevant that you want people to go to, the hyperlink, then maybe. It would depend on whether you were sure that they were going to be seeing it on screen. I mean, if they were going to print out the CV, then the hyperlink is useless. So it's quite tricky.
Yeah, no, I agree, Kerry. It is a tricky one. Generally speaking, for example, we don't print out many CVs at all now. It's all done electronically. And it's in with what we call applicant tracking systems, which most large companies have, and it's all managed electronically. So yes, put hyperlinks in, as Kerry says, if it's really relevant to that particular either work experience or the position that you're applying for.
Okay. Fine. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.